Chapter 6, Principles of Resource Management. The goal of much resource management is sustainable resource use. Slowing or stopping the rate of resource use usually has an added benefit of reducing pollution. Historically, resource management has not led to sustainable use because social, economic, and political pressures emphasize rapid resource exploitation. In addition, overpopulation is resulting in even greater consumption of resources. A resource is a source of raw materials used by society. Reserves are the subset of resources that have been located and can be profitably extracted at current market prices. Renewable resources can be replaced within a few human generations, things like timber, food, solar power, etc. Whereas non-renewable resources cannot be replaced within a few human generations, fossil fuels, ore deposits, soil, etc. Some people reject the concept of resource management as invalid because it presumes humans have the right and the ability to manage nature. In spite of these concerns, resource management is inescapable and can help minimize environmental damage. The alternative is not so good. People have generally allowed resources to be exploited without factoring in so-called externalities. Benefit-cost analysis can help evaluate both short-term and long-term benefits and cost of resource exploitation. Resource management can include preservation, which equals non-use of land or land set aside for its natural state. Conservation, which includes some use. These lands include national forests and federal lands that allow uses such as mining, grazing, and hunting and fishing, as well as water rights. And restoration, which entails return of the land to its original state. Of course, there's a big question what the original state is and how much these things are going to cost. So why do we care about resources? Well, we can think about resources in terms of the 5 E's. Some resources we say have intrinsic values, meaning that the resource has value to itself or to its ecosystem beyond that which the human population would value for itself. So those values are intrinsic to the land, which means it has value unto itself without adding to the human population or adding value to the human population. The other values are so-called extrinsic values. These extrinsic values are anthropocentric, meaning they focus on the human value system. These include aesthetics, emotional, such as sense of place or beyond the sensory, economic, and environmental service. Many would argue that hot springs, mountains, and other geological features in Yellowstone Park have intrinsic value to the life they support beyond the human population. They also have an aesthetic value. If we think about these 5 E's, we can then turn to patterns of resource depletion and see how those value systems overlap into them. Matter resources are depleted by being lost or dispersed. Energy resources are lost by being degraded to an unusable form, usually as waste heat. Unsustainable use of many resources exhibits a bubble pattern effect of depletion. Bubble pattern of depletion. The bubble pattern has 2 main causes: exponential exploitation and exponential depletion. This is a diagram of the predicted U.S. oil production and the actual U.S. oil production. The predicted curve in red was done by M. King Herbert, and the actual U.S. oil production through 2005 is in blue. Both curves peak around 1970. So Herbert predicted the bubble pattern of oil depletion in the United States in the 1950s that has been strikingly accurate. Exponential exploitation occurs along this curve as long as the supply of our resource exceeds the demand. Exponential decline occurs when demand exceeds the supply, which is where we are now. Bubbles caused by either exploitation or exponential depletion usually result in an increase in resource extraction through technology and further exploration. Extraction through technology or further exploration. This causes an economic condition called the law of diminishing returns. The law of diminishing returns states that increasing efforts to extract a resource produce progressively smaller amounts of that resource. An example of decreasing quality is shown in this graph. The decreasing quality of copper ore mined in the United States from the 1900s all the way down to 1980, where it starts to plateau off. Another way to visualize this is to look at extraction efficiency. Here the amount of waste rock and other waste materials increases exponentially as ore grade decreases. So somewhere around here would be 1980, and now the waste produced to generate ore has gone up astronomically. Whereas you have high-grade ore down here and you produce very little waste. Society can react to the decline of a resource in two ways. First, they can intensify efforts to extract more of the resource, which is what usually happens. Or they can reduce the need for the resource through substitution or conservation. In summary, you should be able to know what the pressures on finding sustainability are, what the categories of resources there are, what is an externality. You should be able to look that up in the book. We want to define preservation, conservation, and restoration in this video. What are the 5 E's? Describe a bubble pattern of exploitation, and also know what the law of diminishing returns for resources and net yield. Oops, never mind. Net yield will be in the next video.